Welcome to our journey into plant biology, a field that connects the science of life with our daily survival and well being. Plants are the foundation of nearly every ecosystem on Earth, producing the oxygen we breathe, the food we eat, and the raw materials for medicine, shelter, and clothing. In this course, we will cover not only how plants function, but also why they are so vital for human welfare and global balance. I want you to keep in mind throughout this class that plants are not just background scenery. They are living organisms essential to our health, culture, and sustainability of our future. This introduction will set the stage by looking at the fundamental role plants play, the challenges they face in the changing environment, and how humans depend on them. By the end of this chapter, you will understand why studying plants is essential and how plant biology integrates environmental science, medicine, and human society. Plants make up over 98% of Earth's biomass, meaning that almost all living matter is composed of plant tissue. Through photosynthesis, plants capture sunlight and convert carbon dioxide and water into glucose, the basic fuel for life. As a bonus, this process releases oxygen, which animals, including us, depend on for survival. Scientists estimate that if plants stopped producing oxygen, our atmosphere would run out in about 11 years. This illustrates just how tightly bound our survival is to plant life. Photosynthesis is therefore not just a process you memorize for an exam, it's the foundation of ecosystems, climate stability, and human civilization. As you think about this chapter, consider the simple truth. Every breath you take is thanks to plants. Our planet's life is under tremendous pressure from human activity. Take tropical rainforests for an example. They once covered about 14% of Earth's land surface, but today that figure has been cut to just 6%. Deforestation caused by agriculture, ranching, logging, and even mining continues to accelerate this loss. Why does this matter? Rainforests are home to about 50% of all species on Earth, so destroying them means losing irreplaceable biodiversity. Each species lost represents lost ecological balance and potentially lost medicines, foods, or scientific knowledge. These issues are not abstract. They directly affect climate, water cycles, and the future of human health. The urgency is clear. If we want to preserve the resources plants provide, we must rethink how we interact with the environment. Plants are vital for human survival, not only because they produce oxygen, but also because they supply about 90% of the world's food. Beyond nutrition, plants have given us critical medicines like aspirin, morphine, and cancer treatments, many of which originate from compound plants produced naturally. On the other side, plants also give us narcotic substances, showing that their chemistry can both be heal and harm. Understanding how and why plants make these compounds helps us harness their potential responsibility. Think about every meal. Every cup of tea or coffee and every bottle of medicine links back to plant biology. The global importance of plants stretches from fighting disease to stabilizing economies. While we think of plants as passive producers of energy, some plants challenge this image by becoming consumers themselves. Carnivorous plants such as the Venus flytrap, pitcher plants, and sand dunes capture and digest small animals, usually insects. They do this not to gain calories, since photosynthesis provides energy, but to obtain nutrients like nitrogen and phosphorus, which are scarce in their environment. This adaptation highlights the diversity and ingenuity of plant strategies for survival. By stepping outside the usual plant as producer role, carnivorous plants remind us that plant biology is filled with exceptions, surprises, and fascinating evolutionary experiments. These species also demonstrate how plants can adapt to extreme or poor environments, offering insight into ecological resilience and innovation. Redwoods are amongst the tallest living organisms on Earth, reaching heights close to 90 meters. What makes them remarkable is not only their size, but the efficiency on how they manage resources. They expend surprisingly little energy moving water from their roots to their leaves high above the ground. Instead, they rely on the physical properties of water, solar energy, and transpiration pulled to accomplish this transport. This adaptation is a brilliant example of plants harnessing natural forces to overcome what seems like an impossible challenge. By studying redwood, scientists learn how plants can use environmental energy sources rather than burning their own metabolic fuel. These trees also highlight the importance of long-term survival strategies in stable ecosystems. This course encourages you to think like a scientist by asking questions about plants' role in life and the environment. Why do plants release oxygen at all? What evolutionary purpose does it serve? Can plant science confirm or challenge claims about climate change? Why do some compounds heal while others poison? And how do plants balance this chemistry? How do adaptations allow plants to thrive in deserts, mountains, or frozen tundras? Could studying these adaptations help us engineer crops for difficult conditions? And finally, how exactly do plants capture sunlight and transform it into usable energy? These guided questions are not trivial. They set the framework for understanding biology as an applied science with real-world impacts. As we move forward, I encourage you to keep these questions in mind and connect them both to class materials and issues you see in the news and your community. The human story is tightly connected to population growth. Around 6000 BC, there were roughly 20 million people on Earth. By 1750, the population grew to 500 million, then to 1 billion by 1850, 2 billion by 1920, and over 7 billion by 2011. As of 2018, it reached 7.6 billion and continues to rise. This rapid increase places extraordinary pressures on resources, ecosystems, and plants that sustain us. Every new person requires food, shelter, and water, most of which come from plant systems directly or indirectly. Understanding this context helps explain why environmental issues are so pressing. As humans multiply, their relationship to the environment shifts from one balance to one of exploitation. Our growing population and technological advances have altered the environment in dramatic ways. Wetlands, which once provided natural flood control and wildlife habitats, have been drained. Natural vegetation has been cleared to make way for cities and agriculture. Industrial activities have dumped massive amounts of waste and pollution into the air, soil, and water. This widespread use of pesticides and herbicides has increased crop yield but introduced toxins into ecosystems and food chain. These human actions affect plants and in turn the animals and humans who rely on them. Despite the scale of environmental problems, solutions exist and many begin with plants. Agricultural practices can be modified to conserve soil, water, and biodiversity. Pollutants can be rendered harmless through bioremediation, where plants or microbes break down toxins. Recycling reduces waste and conserves raw materials. Biological pest control, such as using natural predators, can replace or supplement harmful chemical pesticides. Water and energy conservation slow resource depletion. Preserving habitats and species ensures biodiversity remains intact for future generations. The message on this slide is hopeful. Human innovation combined with respect for natural systems can reverse damage and create sustainable futures. The challenge is not whether solutions exist, but whether societies are willing to prioritize and implement them. Plants are the original energy converter of Earth. Through photosynthesis, they transform sunlight into chemical energy stored in glucose. Animals, including humans, cannot directly use solar energy, so we depend on plants to make it accessible. In doing so, plants also produce oxygen, the molecule we breathe in every second of our lives. At the same time, they remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, helping regulate climate and air quality. Without plants, food webs collapse, oxygen vanishes, and climate stability fails. Even carnivorous animals who do not eat plants directly rely on prey and ultimately feed on plant matter. Every link in the food chain circles back to plant productivity. Our relationship with plant goes far beyond food. Humans consume plants directly through fruits, grains, and vegetables, and indirectly when eating animals that they feed on plants. But plants also provide essential cultural and commercial products. Perfumes originate from plants and oils and flowers, while dyes, adhesives, and food stabilizers are derived from plant compounds. Even something as simple as chewing gum started off as plant resin. These examples highlight the plants are woven into daily life in ways we often overlook. They shape economies, influence traditions, and form the backbones of industries worldwide. When you walk into a grocery store, clothing shop, or pharmacy, you are surrounded by plant products. Plants also have shaped human societies by providing beverages, lumber, and paper. Drinks like coffee, tea, and wine are deeply tied to cultural identity and global economies. Lumber has enabled the buildings of homes, ships, and tools, while paper transforms human communication, education, and record keeping. These plant products are not just practical, they have transformed citizenship itself. Imagine the role of a coffee houses in sparking revolutions, or the way paper allowed knowledge to spread across continents. Without these contributions, history would look very different. Plants influence not only biology but also societies, economies, and politics. Beyond food and basic materials, plants provide clothing, medicine, coal, oil, and new sources of alternative energy. Cotton and flax give us fibers for textiles, while countless plants derive compounds from bases of modern medicine. Fossil fuels like coal and oil are the core. Ancient plant matter transformed over millions of years, fueling the industrial age. Today, plants are being reimagined as the future of renewable energy. Biofuels, algae-based oils, and cellulose ethanol promises to reduce our dependence on fossil fuels. Looking ahead, plants will remain central to solving global challenges. They are so indispensable for food, clothing, and shelter, especially as the human population continues to grow. But their role extends beyond meeting basic needs. Plants are increasingly being able to used in environmental cleanup, from removing toxins in soils to absorbing greenhouse gases. The challenge lies balancing human development with conservation. Destroying plant habitats for short-term gain threatens long-term survival. To ensure a sustainable future, societies must minimize habitat destruction, promote reforestation, and embrace agricultural innovation. Botany, the study of plants, began with practical need: foods, fibers, fuels, and medicine. Early societies cultivated and harvested plants without formal science, but curiosity eventually expanded into systemic study. By asking deeper questions about how plants grow, reproduce, and adapt, people transform plant knowledge into a scientific discipline. Botany is now central to biology, ecology, and medicine, as well as agriculture. It connects microscopic cell presence with global ecosystems and human well-being. The scientific method provides a structured way to explain questions about plants and the natural world. It begins with a careful observation which sparks questions and develops into a hypothesis, which is a tentative explanation of a phenomenon. Researchers then design experiments to test these hypotheses, ensure they are repeatable and controlled. Data from these experiments is analyzed, and when patterns emerge, scientists may develop principles or theories. In botany, this process helps uncover how plants grow, adapt, and interact with their environment. For example, why do some plants tolerate drought while others perish? Through experimentation, scientists can test explanations and redefine theories. The key idea here is that science is not about memorizing facts, but about actively questioning, testing, and revising. The scientific method ensures that knowledge in plant biology is evidence-based and continually improving, guiding both applied research and our broader understanding of life. A hypothesis is more than just a guess. It's focused, testable explanations for an observation. In plant biology, a hypothesis might explain why certain leaves turn red in autumn or why one species thrives in salty soil while others cannot. The strength of a hypothesis lies in its ability to be tested and potentially disproven. If experiments support it consistently, it grows stronger. If not, it must be revised or rejected. This willingness to challenge ideas is what separates science from belief. Hypothesis drives the cycle of discovery, ensuring that research always seeks clear answers. For students, thinking in terms of hypothesis encourages critical thinking. Instead of simply asking what happens, you ask why does it happen. This habit builds scientific literacy and prepares you to evaluate claims in both academic and everyday contexts, from climate science debates to advertisements about plant-based products. Experiments are the backbones of testing a hypothesis. A well-designed experiment must be repeatable so that other scientists can confirm results. Key components include variables, which are the factors that change, and controls, which provide a baseline for comparison. Typically, in an experiment, it involves a control group and an experimental group, identical except for one variable. For example, if you want to test whether fertilizers increase plant growth, and the control group would receive no fertilizer, while the experimental group would. Any differences in growth can be attributed to the fertilizer. This careful design allows scientists to isolate cause and effect. In botany, experiments help explain everything from seed germination to climate adaptation. They also highlight the importance of eliminating bias and ensuring objectivity. Understanding how experiments are built and interpreted empowers you to judge scientific claims and see how evidence supports or challenges explanations in plant biology. Once data is collected, it must be analyzed to determine if it supports or contradicts a hypothesis. Data are the raw results of experiments. These are usually in the form of numbers, measurements, or observations that gain meaning only through interpretation. Careful analysis can reveal patterns leading to general principles. When multiple principles link together and withstand repeated testing, they may form a scientific theory. In plant biology, analyzing data might reveal how different light levels affect photosynthesis or how soil nutrients influence crop yield. Importantly, analysis requires honesty and rigor. Manipulating or misinterpreting data undermines scientific credibility. For students, data analysis interprets the importance of evidence-based conclusions, not assumptions. It shows how small-scale experiments can contribute to broad understanding. As botany matured, it diversified into many subspecialties. Plant anatomy examines the internal structures of plants, helping us understand tissues, organs, or microscopic features. Plant physiology focuses on the function, how processes like photosynthesis, transpiration, and growth operate at cellular and organismal levels. Plant taxonomy involves naming, describing, and classifying plants, ensuring scientists would share a common language. Plant systematics builds on taxonomy by developing modern methods, including genetic evidence to refine classification. These disciplines may sound separate, but they are all deeply interconnected. Structure informs function, classification reflects evolutionary history, and physiology connects plants to their environment. By studying plants through multiple lenses, scientists create a comprehensive picture of a plant. Beyond the core ideas, plant biology expands into geography, ecology, and morphology. Plant geography studies the distributions of plants worldwide, asking why certain species thrive in particular climates and regions. Plant ecology explores the interactions between plants and their environments, from soil microbes to animal pollinators to climate pressures. Plant morphology focuses on the form and structure of plants, which form the shape of leaves to the architectures of flowers. These fields reveal how plants adapt to conditions, how ecosystems function, and how biodiversity is shaped by geography and evolution. For example, ecology helps explain the role of plants in carbon cycling, while geography shows how mountains or oceans influence plant diversity. Morphology bridges the form and with function. linking visible traits to survival strategies. Together, these disciplines help us understand how plants live both individually and as essential parts to larger ecosystems. Modern plant science extends into genetics, genomics, and bioinformatics. Genetics, which is the study of heredity, has been essential in improving agricultural crops and developing new medicinal plants. Genetic engineering allows scientists to transfer genes between organisms, creating plants with enhanced resistance, nutrition, or productivity. Genomics takes a broader view by examining the entire genetic makeup of plants and identifying how genes function. Bioinformatics merges biology with computer science and statistics, making it possible to analyze vast amounts of genetic data. These fields push the boundaries of what is possible for plant research, from engineering drought-tolerant crops to mapping evolutionary relationships across plant lineages. They also raise ethical questions about biotechnology and conservation. Plant science continues with additional specialized branches, including cell biology, which investigates cellular structures and processes, and economic botany, which studies practical uses of plants and their products. Ethnobotany explores the relationship between plants and human culture, documenting how societies use plants for medicine, rituals, and traditions. These disciplines highlight how plant biology is not just about lab science, but also about the cultural heritage, economics, and sustainability. For instance, ethnobotany has preserved traditional knowledge that led to modern medicines. Economic botany links scientific discoveries to industries such as agriculture, forestry, and pharmaceuticals. Cell biology, meanwhile, provides the foundation for understanding life processes at the microscopic level, from energy production to cell division. Collectively, these fields remind us that plant science is far from complete. Vast areas remain to be explored, ensuring that plant biology will continue to evolve and expand.